Good evening, ladies and gents. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Transmissions with AJ. Today I'm with my very good friend, Mr. Rob Keane. How you doing, sir?
I'm very good. And how are you doing?
Awesome as always.
Good.
Guys, I've invited Rob onto the show because I really wanted to talk deeply at a special time, I think, in human history where a lot of people have a deeper understanding of what we would, quote as plant medicines, and just actually their part to play in the world, their ancient histories, and I guess a big question that's going around at a time when more and more people are literally walking in the opposite direction of what they've always known as mainstream medicine, Western medicine. Because of the recent events, probably over the last like 5 to 6 years, it's really opened people's eyes to a lot of the nefarious activities that go on with the National Health Service, acts that have been put in place, to fully hammer us from birth, really, with pharmaceutical medicines which are profited on. So I wanted to ask Rob to come on the show today with his expertise, namely around the natural plant that's cannabis, but obviously other sort of medicines as well, which we're open to discuss. And I wanted to do it as like a kind of like a live forum because I know people will have questions and everybody's got their own experiences with certain plant medicines, positive and negative. So it's good. It's a good opportunity to invite Rob on to really talk about the power of the plant. And my big question and the title of the show today is: cannabis one of the greatest medicines on earth? So, Rob, I think it'd be more beneficial for the viewers and listeners, mate, if you give a bit of your background and how you got into doing what you're doing now.
Okay. So firstly, thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure being able to talk to people about this information that I've come across. The way that I came across it actually is quite a sad story, to be honest. I lost my mum when I was 17. I watched her have chemotherapy, radiation, etc., surgery. Every single aspect of the care that was given to my mother was dangerous and, not particularly good for her, right from the testing procedures right through to the very end. I watched her become a shell of herself within moments of having treatment. And I knew as a 17-year-old boy with no training, no knowledge of the human body, but I knew that there was answers out there in nature that wouldn't ravage people's bodies when they were trying to get rid of the cancer, So I basically just got catapulted onto a journey that's been absolutely fascinating. I subconsciously promised myself that I would find natural cancer cures in memory of my mum. And, it was my life goal to actually help people naturally get rid of cancer and, prove to everybody that that is actually possible. It's crazy to think that the medical industry has actually got us convinced that poisons are medicines. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People believe the men in the white coat until the very last day, their last breath. They're still going, no, let's listen to the doctors. Let's listen to the doctors. And sadly, most of the things that they do to us are bad for us. Biopsies, for instance. I mentioned the testing procedure that my mum went through. Biopsies is where they insert needles into a tumor. If you imagine a tumor is like a carrier bag that's full of waste, they basically puncture that carrier bag 7 or 8 times whilst they're doing a biopsy, and they turn it into a tea bag. That cancerous tumor is now leaching toxic waste into your bloodstream and getting delivered around different parts of your body. My father sadly passed away 5 years ago. He was biopsied the day before the NHS closed down, right? Now, I knew what was going on with him. Sadly, he wouldn't listen to a word that I was saying, but when he went in for the biopsy, he had one tumor site in his prostate. When they actually saw him 18 months later, he had 5 tumor sites. Do you know what I mean? So basically, they punctured the tumor and allowed all of that waste just to flood into the body. I knew what was happening, but obviously, he was just adamant he was going to do everything the doctors told him. And sadly, he passed away 5 years ago. Being an absolute cash cow for them, they had actually put him on 30 different medications a day. So, he was big money to the pharmaceutical company, people like him, because what I found happens is that they put you on one tablet, and that one tablet will mess up one of the systems in your body. It will maybe mess up your stomach lining, maybe mess up your liver a little bit. And then you'll need two. Do you know what I mean? And then the second one will mess up your kidney a little bit and your bloodstream and, you know, maybe your heart a little bit. And then you're going to need three, you know, and it's just a slippery slope. Literally, he was on 30 medications a day, including blood coagulation, injections into his stomach, drugs that would line his stomach before the nasty drugs come in. You know, crazy lists of different crazy drugs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to say to him, Dad, you should feel amazing. You know, you're doing 30 medications a day. You should be feeling on top of the world, you know, because this is what happens when we start to use natural medicines. I do occasionally call them medicines. I like to look at them more as food, to be honest with you.
Okay.
You know, supplements that we take is just part of nature. Do you know what I mean? Cannabis is so part of nature. It's, you know, it's one of the most gentle plants on the planet for the human being. Sadly, it's one of the most vilified plants on the planet also. Now, I don't find that a coincidence. You know, there's a reason that it's the most vilified plant on the planet, but it is actually the most medicinal plant as well. And I've proved so many times that, you know, it is absolutely amazing plant for human health.
Yeah.
Not only
I think just touching on that, where you're talking about the plant being vilified, you know, it's not, you only have to look at other, it's not isolated to cannabis, is it, right? It's just, if you take the dandelion, for example, so dandelion is one of the greatest plants for our heart. Yeah, but you go to any supermarket now, all the weed killers have dandelions on them, don't they? So they make it out to be a, you know, a bad weed for you. It's bad for you, get rid. So yeah, so it's not even isolated cannabis, is it? So that in itself is proof.
Yep, absolutely. And, you know, the other thing that I say to people, especially about the cannabis plant, is that there's people across the world that do it just for fun. Do you know what I mean? You don't get that with chemotherapy and statins and radiation. Do you know what I mean? Another thing that I've recently realized is that the oncologist absolutely would not join you in a chemotherapy and radiation treatment. No. But I would happily join the people that I recommend cannabis to. Do you know what I mean? If I'm saying to them, do you want to do a gram of cannabis every day? Do you know what I mean? Do it. I'll do it with you. You know, people that give and subscribe chemotherapy and those types of treatments, there's no way they're going to do those because they're poisons.
Yeah, but yeah.
You know? It's a crazy, crazy state of affairs. It took me a very, very long time to realize that, you know, the NHS and the healthcare service actually isn't there to help us. You know, everything that they do to us every step of the way is damaging. You know, prostate treatment, for instance, might include them putting a burning wire through your prostate to open up the tubes a little bit. You know, whereas I would think, right, the tubes are constricted because of inflammation and toxicity in that area. So what we need to do is to clean that area up and then re-nutrient it, you know, put the minerals back in, which are going to help the body to actually rebuild the cells that they need to replace them, you know. So what I've managed to do over the years is basically find a few absolutely phenomenal plants that are absolutely amazing for health. Cannabis is my favorite one. It is the most amazing plant on the planet by far, you know. Things that I've seen people heal with that is just absolutely mind-blowing. I've seen people, you know, get rid of gout in half an hour that would normally take weeks and weeks and weeks to disappear. I've seen people get rid of migraines that last 2 or 3 days in half an hour. You know, I've seen people have bad backs so bad that they can't stand up, put some cream on, and within minutes are standing up. And within minutes after that are actually sort of walking and running on the spot a little bit. You know, it's absolutely mind-blowing when you see some of these results. I'm really feel very fortunate that I've actually managed to get in front of some of the best healers on the planet. I asked basically Barbara O'Neill, I showed her my gashed head that I did at the Stand in the Light Festival a couple of years ago. I cured it within 12 hours and took pictures of the before and after. Now, to everybody that is into healthcare, what I'm doing is showing them the two different cuts, the two different pictures, and saying to them, how long do you think it took me to heal my head? You know, and most people, for instance, Barbara O'Neill came out and said 10 days. Do you know what I mean? Jacqueline Dunn said 2 weeks. Clive de Cole was the closest the other day. He came 7 days, right? It took me 12 hours to heal it with cannabis. Do you know what I mean? It's a cannabis preparation that is just mixed with coconut oil. As nature intended, you know, both with CBD and THC. because that's where the true power is in the plant, is the symbiotic nature and the way that those two molecules work together in the human body. CBD seems to be like the key that opens the door, and then the THC actually comes in and does the work. But what I've managed to prove as well is that the two of them in combination actually increase the stem cells that your body produces in the area that you apply it to. Right? That's how I was able to heal my head so quickly. Because literally what I did that night was I put it on 12 times, and the stem cells in the area just grew and grew and grew so much that it actually filled up the wound. And by the morning, there was no way I was going to get an infection. It was finished, you know, the wound was healed. You still see a tiny little gash. I don't know if you've actually seen the pictures, have you?
No, I haven't actually, no.
No, because they're on the podcast that I did with Philly. I walked around the Wellness Way Festival with that big banner, you know, just literally going up to everybody. How long do you think it took me? How long do you think it took me? You know, and then when they're saying, that's incredible. This is what Barbara O'Neill said, actually. She was like, that is incredible. She said, how did you do it? I said, well, I'm doing a workshop tomorrow in the year. If you want to come and join us, I'll tell you all about it. Sadly, she already had plans, so she didn't actually make it to my workshop in the year. But yeah, you know, people just go mad for it because it is so rapid. And, you know, when you actually apply that to an NHS type situation, you know, say, for instance, somebody is in there with a bed sore or a leg wound of any description that's got infected. What they would do is they would put more and more antibiotics into the body, which would damage more and more of the body, right? The word biot, B-I-O-T, means life, right? Now, antibiotic means anti-life, right? For instance, probiotic, prebiotic, symbiotic, you know, they're all words using the biot as meaning life. You know, what we need to do is have more symbiotic bacteria and that sort of thing in our body, as opposed to antibiotic things in our body, right?
Well, I'll use my mum as a perfect example there. She died in 2024, actually whilst I was on my medicine retreat that we run in Portugal, the actual day of our medicine day, actually. And up until that point, I went to see her in the hospital, and they were saying that her sodium levels were really low and she was delirious, which she was. But then I saw that they had her on statins and loads of antibiotics, which both massively reduce your sodium levels. So they were literally giving her those antibiotics at that massive level to induce those symptoms, which then gives them the right to then tell the family that she can't go anywhere because she's too delirious, whilst they're giving her midget gems and cans of Coke as the food.
It's great.
And then telling me that she needs to eat her food or she won't be able to go home. Freaking chocolate fudge yogurt, right? And the nurses could barely speak a word of English, just nodding their head and saying yes, whatever they've been told to do by those same doctors who work for the Not Here service. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what I was witnessing, like with my mum, and she was put on antibiotics constantly, all the time, and it just like it literally destroyed. I watched it destroy her body. Like her skin became awful. She did have a lot of after effects from the COVID shots. Like she said it herself. She even said like I got these since I had the shots. Like bad psoriasis, stuff like that. But I actually tried to help her with pure cannabis oil. But again, like because of what she'd always been through her whole life, always reliant on these pills, right? And it leads to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. It's always that need of that quick fix, and that's a big part of the program. This is no judgment against people. Like that is the program that comes with the NHS and the training of the Rockefeller Institute doctors, right, the nurses. It's the ability.
It's faster.
Yeah, so it's a program in itself that creates a hive mind that as soon as you have something wrong with you, you have to go to these people, or you have to go to a tablet, or you have to go to a pill. And the programming starts early when we're playing around with our little doctor's kits as kids.
Absolutely.
And there's little vaccines in there, and there's little pills in there, and we're all running around at 3 years of age, jabbing each other. right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely. And watching Casualty on the telly.
oh mate,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
my mum had that on
And the
all the time. My mum
doctors.
had it on all the time, like Casualty and that.
Mhm.
And yeah, but then obviously all the soap operas play their part as well, don't they? Because they've all got a doctor's surgery, and
Yep.
the doctor's always the clever one and
Mhm.
the well-spoken one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
or
Doctor's
like,
orders, all of that sort of thing.
yeah, like pure subliminal messaging. And then obviously
Mhm.
military like myself, you know, you go in and it's like you need to have all these injections. If you go anywhere, you've got to take all these tablets. Guys, massive threat of malaria, even though you've never seen anyone get malaria. So take all these tablets.
Well, garlic is the one for malaria.
Well, yeah,
You just take a clove of garlic every morning. You ain't
yeah.
getting the
Well, those
mosquitoes
garlic
won't come anywhere near you.
yeah, exactly, mate. Those garlic bracelets, mate, were brilliant when I did stuff in the jungle and that, like absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah,
that sounds good. So you just put one around each wrist and maybe
yeah,
one around your neck.
it's like a bracelet. Yeah, and it literally, oh, godsend.
That's good.
Literally, God sent the plant to fucking fix me problem. Not some,
Thank you.
not some spray.
Yeah, I'll take smelly breath over malaria any day.
Yeah.
But what I was going on to say was, you know, if they were in that hospital, you know, they're getting pumped full of antibiotics to try and get over the infection, right? They will go on to the stronger antibiotics that they can and keep trying to kill that infection whilst raising the amounts that they're actually giving them. Now, this could take weeks and weeks and weeks. Do you know what I mean? In that process, you know, that person's stomach is going to get, you know, pretty badly damaged. All the friendly bacteria will be gone. You know, their ability to fight things will be diminished because of that. And then if they can't get on top of it with the antibiotics, they'll chop the leg off or the arm off or the hand off. Do you know what I mean? And it literally is like that, right? There was a lady that came out of hospital recently with sepsis, which seems to happen a lot nowadays. Like, you never used to hear about people coming out of hospital with infections like they do at the moment. You know, literally,
Everyone gets pneumonia.
Every person that does come out of the hospital catches something. Do you know what I mean?
My dad's just been in for just under a month, right, from a stroke, and like they said to his wife, like my stepmom, like, oh yeah, he's had pneumonia. So it's like everyone gets pneumonia in hospital.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Why is that?
So anyway, I mean, well, I mean, the conspiracy theorist mind in myself would be thinking, are they doing that on purpose? Do you know what I mean? Maybe not cleaning the wards as well as they should be. You know, maybe, you know, because it's a lowly paid job, encouraging them to do it faster and faster and faster. Don't change the water, just getting them, just do it, sort of thing. You know, in the knowledge that there's going to be nasty strains kicking around that could get into wounds that are open and cause infections, you know. So anyway, I mean, a lady came out of hospital with sepsis in her knee. She'd had a knee operation and it was getting worse and worse and worse. They'd given her the strongest antibiotics they could and said to her, if these ones don't work, we're going to have to take your leg off. Sorry about that. She got in touch with me. I organised a few different bits and pieces, all natural, all working with the body, right? Within a couple of weeks, she messaged me and said, like, Rob, this is amazing. You know, there's no way that this is going downhill now. We're heading in the right direction. I just put down my crutches today. Do you know what I mean? And these sorts of messages come so often. You know, if she'd have carried on down their route, they would have taken her leg off. You know, I've had that on a couple of occasions where amputations has been discussed, but then using natural products that are cheap and actually work. Do you know what I mean? We were managing to keep those people's limbs, you know. It's quite a crazy story. I was giving a lady massages every week, and whilst I was doing that, her mum actually burnt herself with a hot water bottle. She was getting into bed one night and she sadly didn't have any feelings underneath her hips, so the water bottle came apart and all of the hot water just spilled all over her legs, you know. The NHS sent 2 nurses every day for like 6 months to redress all of the wounds and that, right? Now, if there was me looking after that wound, I would have gone to the person once and I would have shown her how to deal with it herself. So, for instance, I would have made up a spritz and I would have had a little jar of something, and then I would have had some cannabis cream, you know, and I would teach her to use those 3 things in combination. And I reckon that within a couple of weeks, she'd have fixed herself, right? Now, when you consider the amount of money that goes into the care that she had versus the care that I would have given her, considering that she would have been fixed within 2 weeks and I would have only had 1 visit, instead of 2 people going there every day for 6 months. You know, that is costing thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. You know, there's no two ways about it. And often wouldn't work anyway. Because, you know, like, where does bacteria grow? It's in darkness, in damp conditions. You know, what do they do with wounds? They put them in darkness and damp conditions. Do you know what I mean? So you're sort of fighting a bit of an uphill battle straight away when you're doing those type of things with your body. For instance, if the wound was open, you know, no bandages, anything like that on it, and was getting air, hopefully sunlight, that's going to be 10 times better than bandaging up a wound and covering it up and restricting the oxygen flow to it. Do you know what I mean? And there's so many things that they do like this that just do not make any sense.
Well, it's that, even the whole, you touched on earlier with the tumour side of things. They say, they've removed tumours or they open tumours to get rid of them, but it just creates spread elsewhere, right? It's
That's
the same.
right.
It's the same as if you sprain your ankle, you sprain your wrist, you instantly get swelling because your body's instantly. It's like its own emergency airbag, isn't it? It's like it's creating that protection instantly around you, like gone into protective mode around that specific area. But you're told to smash ice straight on it and like to basically shrink that healing capability.
So, like, the inflammation is basically, as long as the nutrition is there to begin with, then the body can heal. But do you know what I mean? I feel like most people haven't got that much nutrition in them. So when the inflammation comes, it's like it has to stay there to shield the thing because the body can't fix itself anymore. Because it's funny that you should mention that, because that's one of the first things that cannabis does, is it gets rid of inflammation around the area, increases the blood flow, but would be delivering stem cells to the area. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know whether or not putting ice on a wound would be detrimental. I mean,
it's not so much detrimental. It's not so much detrimental, but you're reducing your own body's ability, what it's already doing, by putting cold onto it's swollen up on purpose. It was instantly protecting. It goes into stem cell protection. But the ice actually compresses it and reduces its capability, basically. It's very interesting when we look at it like that. But I'm not saying that like all the whole physiotherapy and the ice pack thing's bad, but it's actually there's other ways that are, you know, better. Like
well, putting some cannabis cream on it, mate. Do you know what I mean? Literally,
I'd love to see it though. I'd love to see it like Sunday League. All the blokes are literally going off at half time. Like, Minnie, I'll get some of this cannabis cream on it. And then you've just got like 2 teams playing against each other in pure love and harmony, like just like high on fumes and that for all the cannabis cream. All the coaches high-fiving each other at half time, and
that's idyllic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? The Premier League footballers, when they get players out for months and months and months, I'm sure I could get them back playing again so much faster. Do you know what I mean? A matter of weeks later, they'll be back on the playing field running around like crazy, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Because when people see that gashed head of mine, right, what I say to them is, you know, if it can fix me on the outside like that, what can it do on the inside? Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's leaky gut, Crohn's disease, you know, any of those type of internal issues. One of the more astounding ones that we managed to do a couple of years ago was a lady was getting epileptic fits, about 15 to 20 of them a day. Literally, some of them were lasting 45 minutes. She started cannabis treatment. She was using an oral dose, CBD in the day, THC at night. She, within 6 weeks, went to 0 fits and then had a 10-week period with no fits at all.
Amazing.
Do you know what I mean? She was a prisoner in her own home. Most of the day of her day was spent fitting. She had 4 children that she couldn't parent. She literally, the first thing that she said to me was, Rob, I watched your podcast on the Philly J. Lay show. She said, before I'd watched that, I was going to kill myself. And my jaw just dropped. I was like, oh my God, this is quite amazing. And she went on to tell me, you know, I've got 4 kids and I was a prisoner in my own home. They took my driving license away. I didn't want to take them on public transport in case I had a fit when I was out with them. And she said, you know, I was at the end of the road. She said, and then when I saw that, she said, I made a promise to myself to try everything that I can until I find the thing that's going to fix me, right? And I said to her, we're not going to look very far because it's cannabis. Cannabis is going to do that. And sure enough, she bought 2 little bottles, one of CBD, one of THC, costing 110 quid. Started to microdose with those, and yeah, 6 weeks later, she's not fitting anymore.
That's beautiful, man.
You know, mate, it's so awesome. You know, I've had people who haven't been able to play their guitar for years. You know, they put some of my cream on their hands and then they pick their guitar up for a few minutes.
Well, this is going to be one of my questions that I bet because of things like vaccines and stuff like that, right? So many women in the last 5 years have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, right? And I'm yet to meet any ladies that didn't have the COVID shots that have suddenly been like diagnosed with fibromyalgia, like for whatever reason. But I know within my family and friendship circles and people that are even in our community that have early on got diagnosed with it, because the doctors, obviously you get very quick to diagnose these symptoms with fibromyalgia, right? When we know a lot of it where it's from, right? Have you had a lot of people come to you with, you know, fibromyalgia?
Absolutely, loads of them. You know,
and also rheumatoid arthritis as well, which is what a lot of them are being a lot of people are being diagnosed with dualistically, aren't they? They're saying you've got this and this.
Yeah, it's similar ballpark sort of territory. You know, it's basically nerve damage. Could be via inflammation. So one of the interesting things that I found out is that things like arthritis, it ends in the letters itis, itis, right? What that means is inflammation. So for instance, any symptom that ends in itis is inflammatory event, pericarditis, myocarditis, tonsillitis,
colitis,
you know, appendicitis, you know, all of those types of things are inflammatory issues, which are all really easily healed with cannabis. Do you know what I mean? You get the cannabis to the area that you've got the inflammation, that will get rid of it. There's no two ways about it. This is one of the reasons that they hate it so much. You know, it just literally fixes things so quickly.
Well, they want the body inflamed everywhere, don't they? Because, you know,
it's the precursor to the diseases, you see.
Yeah. Like, just, you know, because I was at the when we saw each other in London, I was doing literally my talk was on the body and the channel, and it's like it's about keeping this channel like as inflamed as possible, so you're not connecting with nature. You're not a channel of light. You're not. Do you know what I mean? And that's why people get so discombobulated and suffer from dis-ease, because they're just full of blockages through and through. Like they're not grounding into that energy, they're not channeling that energy, they're not connecting with nature and plants to ground all the horrendous daily frequencies. From the minute we get up in the morning to the minute you go to bed, you're hammered with it, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the way they want it, you know, because they know that the inflammation is the precursor to disease and symptoms. And then as soon as that comes along, you're going to be a lifelong supporter of your doctor by going back and back and back, because he's only going to just mask the symptoms very slightly, and then you'll be back for more. You know, the way that they look at it is like, if you imagine a house is on fire and they're blowing away the smoke so that the smoke isn't there anymore, but the fire's still raging. But they'll be turning around to you and say, look, we've got rid of the fire now because the smoke's gone. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're focusing on the wrong side of things, getting rid of that, but leaving the fire going, you know. It seems to be the sort of go-to strategy for how they, you know, try and take care of health, sadly.
Yep.
Yeah, Dr. Sebi said that all disease is acidity. And one of the interesting things that I've just recently worked out is that structured water is negatively charged. But structured water, the negative charge aspect of it, I believe, is the alkaline aspect of it, right? So the acidity is plus charged, and that's the bit that we shouldn't be having in our body. This is why charcoals and binders and that sort of thing are so effective, because when you take them into you, they attract by magnetism the wastes that are positively charged. Does that make sense? I was just having a geek out last night with one of my friends, you know, getting right into it all. But yeah, I'm sure that that's one of the areas that they really mislead us. For instance, do you know what pH stands for?
I've got about 3 million innuendos going on in my head. It's probably not appropriate for the show. Go on.
You see, I ask a lot of people that question, and they're all like, yeah, I know what that means, but yeah, I just can't think of it at the moment, right? What it means is the power of hydrogen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Potential hydrogen. So,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Acidity
Yeah.
is low hydrogen.
Yeah.
Alkaline is high hydrogen or high potential hydrogen, right? I'm sure that that's the negatively charged aspect of what I was just saying about. Because what our body is something called hydrophilic, right?
Yeah.
So imagine like a filter which will only allow negatively charged through that filter. If you're drinking positively charged water, it's just going straight through you. It's not going into your cell structures, right? You know what I mean? You'll drink a glass of water and literally it will move through you in a globule and then out, you know? But whereas when you structure the water, it actually permeates into the cells.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dehydrated, you can feel your cells, your brain just like hydrating again.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing actually is hydrogen is hydration. Do you know what I mean? I've been doing quite a bit of work into language and, you know, the words of things and the meaning. But yeah, hydration, that is the actual hydrogen being around the cells. Obviously, if you've got the minerals, the nutrition within that hydration, then your cell structures are going to be strong. Now, Sarah Myhill thinks that the vaccine, the actual spike protein, is there to attack the structured water around the cells, which makes a lot of sense to me because, you know, that's when the waste will be able to get into the cells, and that's when you're going to be getting your turbo cancers and the things that aren't going to react to things like oxygen, you know.
But if you actually think about it, like, and I'll take this to a bit of a cosmic level, right? If you think like, so you take that cell you're talking about, where the water structure of the cell. So the cells are selves, but like millions of little us's, right? That all come together. Yeah. Like we are a self in a universe, right? But it's our universe, so it's ours, right? But like those, if you're going to attack the water around the cells, the cells are just a replication of us, which is the same percentage of water as around the cells, but also the same percentage of water as around our Earth, and the Earth is us. Do you see what I mean? So you've got it. That's the micro and the macro and the micro.
Absolutely.
Do you see what I mean? So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that makes that just like was going. That makes total sense. Like, so, but
Well,
that also shows how powerful we are, though, because like if they go to that level to harm us and break us down, like why is that? That is the question we should always be asking.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's why they focus so much on the pineal gland.
Yeah.
When they calcify that, you know, we're half the people that we should be. Do you know what I mean?
Less than that, mate.
Yeah, probably actually.
Less than that walking around town centres.
I developed a cream which is absolutely brilliant, and what I think it does is that it goes into the pineal gland and actually increases the melatonin. I believe it decalcifies the pineal gland. And the reason that I say that is that basically it came to me in a dream. I was just waking up one morning and I saw a pine cone in purple, and then the word pinene, and then the word pineal, right? And then I woke up, right, and I was like, shit, that was so vivid, so real. Like, that's a message, you know. And I text my mate straight away, right, this is a cream that I'm going to develop. Anyway, I've started to trial it. I got people to put it just in between their eyebrow, you know, above their forehead, around that sort of area. And literally people were coming back to me the day after I've given it to them going, Rob, I had the best night's sleep, you know, and in my dreams I went away and made peace with my ex-husband. You know, or another person would come back and be like, Rob, I'm getting crazy dreams when I use that cream on my pineal gland. I'm like, what sort of dreams are you getting? And they'll say to me, right, well, I'm in this tunnel and there's all these kaleidoscope colors all around me and I'm traveling down this tunnel, right? And I'm like, oh, wow. Do you know what I mean? Like, you obviously know what that means, right? The portal to the other worlds, you know, and they're achieving that just by putting this cream on their forehead.
Well, it makes sense because they're astral projecting, you know, like
that's the beat of all of it.
Yeah, and you know, so it's like what I kind of I teach in my breath work and stuff like that, and I always get a lot of questions about astral projection and how like my breathwork sessions take people into that space. You know what I mean? The astral, because you're firing up the endocannabinoid system, which, you know, binds with the cannabinoids in cannabis. You know, and I'll talk about this a lot on my breathwork courses. Is that, you know, that sensation you feel, that, you know, that homeostasis is the homeostasis you get from the cannabinoids in the plant, because, you know, that natural high is actually like what we should feel like and be like all the time. You know what I mean? We shouldn't feel deflated. We shouldn't feel fatigued. We shouldn't be purging and all this kind of stuff. We should feel that we should be at homeostasis all the time. So the name of their game is to keep us as much unbalanced from being homeostatic as possible, and being in a low vibrational state and stuff like that. Because when we're down there, we can't make this magic happen, right? We're not
Really,
creating astral projections where our power is, and we're not connecting to our
absolutely,
gifts, and we're not connected to source energy.
absolutely. And we can't get together.
No.
Do you know what I mean? We can't unite when we're like that, you know, because it's like walking through treacle. You know,
Yeah.
and they know that. That's why they do it. You know, a lot of people think it's just all about the money, and it is to a degree, but they can print their own money.
Yeah.
There has to be another part of it, you know, and I believe that that's it. You know, it's the controlling of consciousness, really.
100%. It's trying to mimic consciousness and control it, like, because they can't. So AI, for example, has actually been around for hundreds of thousands of years. It's just like in this lifetime, we only see it as what we perceive as what kind of either experienced or been shown. So people get a bit confused with it, but actually, you know, like most of the things we've seen since we were little kids is AI. Most of the things you see with war scenes is AI. It's just that it's only become aware to the mass population now. But
yeah, that's true.
It's,
you know,
it's to twist and control your consciousness or mimic it, and that's why, and I'll fucking call them out. That's why there's influencers out there right now that like spread all this or speak all this stuff, talk all this talk about Hollywood celebrities or fucking royals or whoever, right? This, that, and the other. Like, it's all surface level stuff. But when they're asked any questions about stuff, they just mimic. They can't answer any questions, so they can't actually create new thoughts. They're running on programs. I can see them a fucking mile off.
yeah.
Like,
Well, it's the ones that aren't bringing solutions.
exactly.
You know what I mean? They're the ones that are going to be the purveyors of the information that are given to them. You know,
Yeah.
the ones that are bringing out
people.
solutions, they'll be the ones that will get, you know, quietened somehow.
Yeah, exactly. On the subject of cannabis and that, I've put your email there on the screen so everybody
Thank
can
you.
see people to contact with I guess a menu. But in terms of the products themselves, obviously, like, you know, I've experienced, you know, your cannabis creams that are absolutely fantastic. When I saw you the Wellness Way, I was having a lot of problems with my neck and my shoulder that I couldn't shift, and it was all affecting my jaw. You know, and it worked great, and I've used the product since.
Excellent. That's good.
And yeah, you know, and I used to smoke. I smoked a lot of cannabis for a period of time, but I was going through quite a rough patch in my life. A lot of, you know, transitions from previous marriages, you know, leaving my kids, like, and I've been very vocal about this. And at the time, I was smoking a lot of cannabis, like as a crutch. You know, I look back on it now. I was absolutely using it as a crutch, like whilst I was dealing with what was kind of grief, mate. And, you know, and I know there's a lot of people probably watching and listening that have experienced but quite similar. But also where me and Corinne got together, like, I wasn't a smoker. Do you know what I mean? She didn't get with the smoker, so suddenly I was like smoking weed, and she was like, didn't like the smell, like anything like that, which I totally get. But obviously, there's many other ways of either ingesting it or consuming cannabis. But for most people out there, you know, the movies, the series, like the music videos, like all this kind of stuff, if you say to someone cannabis, and, you know, most people's thoughts will think to smoking a joint, right?
That's what they want.
Yeah, but in terms of health, like, as in raw health benefits, you know, from your experience and from what you've seen, would you where would you rate smoking cannabis amongst the ways to consume the product?
Okay, so like Barbara O'Neill, she fixes heart attacks with cayenne pepper, right? Now, I'd love to ask her this question because apparently she hates the cannabis plant. But if she gave cayenne pepper to somebody that's having a heart attack in a Rizzler with some tobacco, rolled it up, lit it up, got them to suck on the smoke, would it work in the same way? Right? Would it fix that heart attack if that person was smoking it in a Rizzler with tobacco? The answer is no. It's obvious, right? And it's the same with the cannabis plant. You know, it's not going to have the medicinal impact when you're putting a flame to it and actually burning the structure, right? When you're ingesting it with CBD and THC, the health benefits are just literally out of this world. You know, it's, you know, when you understand how amazing cannabis as a medicine is, you will never trust your government ever again. You will never trust the big pharmaceutical companies ever again. Like literally, you know, for something that is so cheap and so available, you know, literally everybody could grow a plant in their own garden. That would be enough medicine for the whole family for the whole year. You know, from one plant that's grown well, you could make about 10 jars of cream. 10 jars of cream is going to last most families the whole year. Do you know what I mean? It's literally 80% of the problems would disappear if people knew how to do that. You know, arthritis, RSI, migraines, headaches, toothaches, tinnitus. We get people's smells back with it, right? So during COVID, people were getting COVID, losing the sense of smell, right? The lady that was helping me at the time, Tara, says to me, Rob, she goes, I've just put some cream up my nose and got my smell back half an hour after doing it. I was like, Jesus, that's amazing. So I started telling people about it and they're like, oh yeah, my mum, she can't smell after COVID. So I'd say to them, look, just get her some cream, put it up her nose and see what happens, you know? And they'd always come back to me like, you know, within an hour or two saying, Rob, they can smell again, right? So I was recalling these situations at a talk up in Ipswich one day. And a guy puts his hand up and he says, Rob, I haven't been able to smell for 18 years after a car accident. I said, he goes, will it help me? Right. So I was thinking in the back of my mind, you know, it's a car accident, it's physical damage. You're probably not going to get fixed from that, mate. But what I said to him was, look, I know it's not going to hurt you. Cannabis is the most gentle plant on the planet. Put some up your nose. If it doesn't work, you haven't lost anything, right? He puts some up his nose. Half an hour later, he can smell again, right? He's dancing around the audience, 40 people were there witnessing it. Right, he's going, I can fucking smell again. I can fucking just literally, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, so then I was at Stand in the Light festival and I was regaling these stories to a lady, and she said to me, you know, when I was a kid, she says I had surgery on my nose. She said I was that kid that would always eat with their mouth open, always have like really congested nasal passages. So they, in their wisdom, healthcare, they did an operation on her to open up her nasal passages, right? But they cut through her senses while they were doing that. So 40-ish years ago, she had this operation, hasn't been able to smell for her whole life pretty much. She put some cream on. Next morning, she comes back to the store. She's like, I can smell again. It's outrageous.
Yeah,
you know, the things that I've seen healed with this and, you know, helped within half an hour often is outrageous. Like, I know I never... Sorry, let me just say this one thing. I was walking past my bed one night, right? And as I walked past it, I kicked my ankle against the bedpost, right? And I was in so much pain that I couldn't walk. I had to lay down for a few minutes and, you know, really get my breath. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to work tomorrow. This was a few years ago. I was a landscape gardener at the time. And I hobbled down to the fridge and I sat down with my cream and I just started to put it on, and I put it on every 20 minutes over a couple of hours. And then literally I put some weight on it and I could start to put a bit of weight on it. I started to walk and I was thinking, do you know, I might be able to go to work tomorrow. I kept putting it on sporadically through the evening. I woke up in the morning, I've got no pain at all. Like, I went to work, no problem. One of the first batches of cream that I made, there was a lad that came into work for me. He had gout and he could hardly walk, right? He was dragging his leg behind him. And I said to him, listen, pop some of this cream on, just see what you think. You know, I don't know if it's going to work or not. He put some on. Literally half an hour later, he walked up to me and a look of incredulation on his face. He was like, Rob, I've got no pain at all. This would normally take weeks to get rid of. You know, mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when my mum was like, kind of, I'd say go through like a deterioration phase, really. And she had like really bad psoriasis, like really bad, like all across her elbows, from the COVID jabs and that. And I basically got to the point where I got her some THC, and a friend of mine said like, "I'll mix it with coconut oil, like to put it directly onto the skin." So I said to her about doing that, but you know, at the time she was like running a pub, so she said she stopped. I asked her how she was getting on with it a few days later. She said she stopped using it, and I was like, "Oh, why?" She said, "Oh, because all my punters thought I was a dealer because I stunk of weed."
It's a shame. That sort of thing is such a shame.
Yeah, so she stopped using it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of some people, but that might be a concern of theirs. Like obviously, we've talked deeply about the benefits. We talked, from your own experience. I can vouch for everything you're saying. I've used it on myself many times. I'm an active user of cannabis oil. Like in a medicinal way. I use it intentionally, especially around wanting to do deep work in terms of meditation. I don't mean deep work in terms of like loads of healing stuff. I mean like soul mission, like activation is just like getting amongst it. And I can vouch that it 100% is God's plan in that essence. Like I've always had a very strong connection to cannabis, but it's in the manner in which I use it, which is actually of the utmost importance, and that I can absolutely vouch for.
Absolutely.
It's also, it's also very much in the same family tree as ayahuasca, which, obviously we're on retreats in Portugal and stuff like that, and very much on the same family tree in terms of not as a psychedelic as such, but like in terms of the medicinal qualities, when used in that proper intentional fashion, like you will always get what you need to receive. And the plant is conscious, has spirit, and it will always meet you where you're at. So it'll always meet you with the consciousness you put into it. So if you're just going to smoke a joint recreationally, blah blah, whilst putting a bet on and smashing a pint, eating a Maccas,
Yeah.
like the plant is going to give you the consciousness you're putting into it. And it's the same with all. It's the same with all plant medicines, like all of them, whether it's hape or ayahuasca or cambo or whatever. They're all conscious medicines that have been around hundreds of thousands of years, longer than fucking any books and Bibles and everything else like that. But I'm sure lots of people watching and listening as well will be able to, agree and have experienced that their own ancestors in some shape or form telling us at some point in our life that the only medicine we need grows where we live. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. When you drive down the road and you see all of the hedgerow medicines, nettles, dandelions, cleavers, you know what I mean? It's crazy. We're driving past all of these medicines every day. Hardly anybody knows how to use them. I find that sort of thing really fascinating, actually. The fact that the earth provides everything that we need, just right where we are. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is, mate. And it's like, in the last year or so, like I've actually started eating mushrooms. It's a big deal for me. I've always been like, no. But I'm like, I was literally saying to Corin earlier, I was just like, I reckon that I was put off eating mushrooms my whole life to put me off mushrooms in general. So it kept me away from any mushrooms.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
What were you worried about, the psilocybin ones?
No, I wasn't worried about it. As in like any like eating mushrooms, just like normal mushrooms in food. I wouldn't go near them. But it's in the last year I've like kind of, as soon as I've adapted, obviously things have changed, massively. And again, they're just another form of medicine, right?
Absolutely.
And they grow where we live.
Yep, absolutely. I went out and foraged some turkey tail the other day.
They're trying to ban that now, aren't they?
They have banned it, yeah.
They have banned it now, yeah.
Apparently, some suppliers have been contacted and told, you either need to throw that stuff in the bin or get rid of it some other way. But yeah, the same with cordyceps as well. You see, this is one of the things that I always do, right? Is I find the vilified medicines. Do you know what I mean? In the knowledge that they're going to be the decent ones, right? Yeah. But the fact that they've burned cordyceps and turkey tail, to me, says they're fucking brilliant, right? So that's made me go and do a load more research into those two mushrooms, It's like fly agaric, Amanita muscaria. That is an absolute amazing mushroom. I had a bit of an anxious period a couple of years back, and basically I was waking up in the morning and being jittery, right? I'd take the tiniest little bit of Amanita muscaria and I was back to zero again. Within like 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm back to normal. No adrenaline, no sort of, you know. And I remember thinking, wow, they've been telling us that this stuff is like super dangerous for us all of our lives. You know, if you eat one of these, you're going to die of liver failure, you know?
Well, it's like, I had I went for a period of using Amanita muscaria,
That's the flag.
powders, but at night time, like in a chamomile tea. And when I was just like not sleeping properly, I was waking up like 3 o'clock every morning and then struggling to get back to sleep. I know a lot of people have been through those periods as well. But Amanita muscaria is brilliant, and I was having solid sleeps, like vivid dreams as well, but like solid sleeps, you know, like really
so good.
Yeah, they really set me on, like that, really helped balance me, you know. And then I was training again, you know, kept up my training and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, really great mushroom, like 100%.
Yeah, definitely. So many things like that out there.
But I think that, you know, the importance of this podcast was to highlight all of this, and at a time when, you know, so many more people now are just stepping into this realm of that, you know, like millions of people have worked out now that, you know, COVID was a sham, but it's opened their eyes up to the whole pharmaceutical industry as a whole. It wasn't just about seeing COVID as a sham. It's actually the whole bigger picture and everything that is governed and controlled by the same heads of the snake, which control it all, right? And opening people's eyes to that. So that you know that, but each thing is designed to show you, in my eyes, how powerful you truly are, right? And that the only medicines you need grow where you live, and you take control of your own bodily autonomy, your sovereignty, and that is the name of the game, really, like in terms of this human experience, right? But like all these beautiful sacred plants are there for us, literally, like you see in a computer game. Let's use Mario, for example. Your health goes down a little bit. Bosh, you find a mushroom, you power up, don't you?
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So it's
I do a really interesting talk, which basically exposes loads of them. It's called The Marvelous Molecules. And, you know, I go into a few of the really highly vilified natural medicines. Oxygen is one of the most vilified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like oxygen.
That's why we call people oxygen thieves for a reason, don't we?
What I've done is condensed it into a really interesting talk, and I do a few different talks like that for, you know, small groups of people. Yeah, I love that, all of that sort of stuff, you know, because the more they try and hide it, the more I want people to know about it. Do you know what I mean? Especially for, you know, the highly healing ones.
Yeah.
Chlorine dioxide, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. Like CDS has helped a lot of people I know, like loads, especially with eczemas. Chlorine dioxide, especially with eczemas and psoriasis, because obviously it's like it comes from the gut, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can do. Yeah. A few different things like that. DMSO is another one. Aloe vera is another one that I use a lot.
Yeah, it's in the actual plant, aloe vera.
Yeah, absolutely. Aloe vera is quite an amazing plant. It's it supplies all of the nutrition that the body needs to create cells.
Yeah.
What it also does is it's like it's a little bit like DMSO in that it just penetrates straight through the skin.
Yeah.
But it takes all of that nutrition with it. So, you know, aloe vera is a little bit like the delivery truck turning up on a building site.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's got all of the cements and sands and ballasts and all of that stuff that they're going to need to actually start building the houses, you know?
Yeah.
Aloe vera is great for that sort of thing.
Yeah, we actually got plants here in the house, and like just cut a little bit off, keep it in the fridge, and then you can literally just like you literally rub it across your face and like over your third eye area as well, around your temples and that.
Yeah, I'll mix it with a bit of my cream over your third eye, and then that will just punch it straight in.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Sending you to God's town, mate. Bosh.
You want deep sleep? Do that. For sure.
Yeah. No, but no, it's got the aloe vera is great. I mean, you know, I'm actually 67. I'm actually 67, but in a 44-year-old's body. Thanks to cannabis and aloe vera. Yeah, but for the benefit of the viewers, go on, mate. Sorry.
What I was going to say was there's another talk that I do called The Lines of Destiny from the Cult of the Medics, right? I reckon that you'll love this, right? Basically what happens is on the winter equinox, the sun rises above the horizon and the first sun goes into a place called Newgrange in Ireland, right? It's only on that day of the year does the sunlight go in the front door and it illuminates the whole of the building, right? Absolutely amazing place. It should be just as famous as all the pyramids, but hardly anybody knows about it, right? So anyway, that first sunlight actually traverses over Stonehenge to get there, right? This is one of my friends that came up with all of this information. But basically, the sunrise is on the horizon. It goes over Mecca, the pyramids of Giza, goes on to the Louvre, then Notre Dame, then over Stonehenge, and then into this place called Newgrange, right? And that's all that happens on the winter equinox. So literally all of those ancient alignments are on the same path, right? It's absolutely astounding information. I'd love to present it to you and to a group of people if you were interested in that. I reckon that you would love it, you know, knowing how much you love the
mate, yeah,
and, you know, all of that sort of information.
That is right up my galaxy.
Right. I've basically proved that the people that built Petra are still in control today. And I know that because of the symbolism that they used in Petra and that they still use today on, you know, pretty much every building that they build. Buckingham Palace, the White House, Belgian Parliament, the Russian Parliament used to, well, it still does at the moment, but it looks like just a block of flats basically. But they're going to knock that down and they're going to make it look like Petra.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And like you look in your sterling, your pound notes in your wallet at the moment, every single one of them will have this symbolism from Petra in it.
Interesting.
Right? Like the Temple of Zeus, you would have seen it. The Bank of England, for instance, they've all got this sort of triangle at the front with pillars coming down it. Do you know what I mean? The White House, you see it straight on the White House, often like St. Paul's in London, there's a dome behind it. And you know about the vibrations coming down from the east, right? So what they would have done was pulled all the energy straight down the spire into the dome, which then people get healed on the middle. But it's all got that symbolism. Crazy, right? So what I ended up doing as part of this talk was looking into the residences for the 13 families. Every single one of the 13 families has got that fucking symbolism on their house, right? I was looking at I think it was the Astors. Anyway, the Astors, it's not completely obvious on the front of the house, right? But what they've got, the house is so massive, they've got 8 separate chimney stacks, right? And on every single one of these chimney stacks, they've got that symbolism, right? So they've got it each way, north, south, east, west. Symbol is looking out at every angle from the chimney stacks. And it's like, you really wanted to tell people that you are a part of that clan. Do you know what I mean? To have put it on 8 of your chimney stacks. It's fascinating, mate. If you're interested, I'd love to present that to you. I reckon you would go mad for it.
So here's a question.
Go on.
Rather than them being an opposing force or the enemy or anything else like that, trying to mimic or trying to mock us, how do you know that you or we haven't put them there for that reason, to provide that symbolism, because it's all part of our actual quest in this crazy Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider / Grand Theft Auto / Truman Show verse that we're currently living in right now? Sorry, that was my ADHD brain going.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do you know they're not actually that bad? We've actually created them to give us that duality all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, for instance, the yin and yang symbol says that there's got to be equal amounts of bad and good. Do you know what I mean? So is it balance? Is it harmony with them being there and being such nasty motherfuckers with people like us that are being so lovely, you know?
But I think we've been taught this already, right? That is actually to that extremities, right? Because I've been saying for ages, right? Klaus Schwab, right? They even made him look like Dr. Evil, right? so from a movie. He even appeared in these weird outfits looking like something from the movies.
Yeah.
Showing you it's all theatre. But at the same time, you put him at the head of something which they call the New World Order or the WHOs or the blah blah blah. There's always an agency, right? There's always some significant body to look at. But you've also got to have figures within these bodies, and that the characters, right? But they always said oh, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2030. But like, if Agenda 2030 is negative in the eyes of New World Order, blah blah blah, well, what's the polarity to that? Well, the polarity would be like New Earth being formed, right? And if anybody's paid attention to like when the planet started ascending, which is said to have been since 2012, but they said it's going to take up to 2030 for that to actually take fruition, possibly sooner. And that's what we're actually experiencing for those on that timeline, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is like they say like you'll own nothing and be happy, but actually, if you look at the flip of that, then yeah, you're right. Like we don't need to own anything, and we could be absolutely happy because if you're sovereign, you're connected to the land, you're connected to the earth, you're connected to the plants, you're connected to the sun, you're connected to your community, and you're not controlled by money or like everything we've been surrounded by, right? Then that's what we're there to experience, right? You don't need to own anything, and you'll be fucking happy.
I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a group of people together to buy like a retreat site. There's a place in Wales at the moment that is absolutely perfect for all manner of different experience retreats, and it's got borehole water and springs and 9 acres of land and 9 different buildings on the property. And yeah, I just need to get a few people together that are willing to invest some money in it. So if anybody's watching that's interested in that sort of thing, make sure you send me an email, because I love producing our own organic food, for instance. Our animals that are loved. Do you know what I mean? And producing medicine on a different scale. One of my friends he runs an electroculture company. Now, electroculture, I don't know if you know much about it, but like basically he's growing plants 10 times quicker. And the plants that he grows 10 times quicker are actually more nutritious than the way that we would grow them at the moment. And what he's doing is he's encouraging ether from above the ground to come down into cables that are 6 inches underneath the ground, running north to south. So he'll put like a spire up at one end of the garden and then run cables off of that, all 1 meter apart in a grid sort of type setup, but north to south. And then literally the ether comes down those cables and then straight to the roots of the plants as he plants them. It's absolutely mind-blowing. They were growing strawberries in -5.
Brilliant.
For instance, it's just absolutely amazing. And when we get these type of information back, the world will not be overpopulated. There's no way it will be. We'll be able to grow so much food, we won't know what to do with it. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, things like free energy is where, that's where the holy grail for me is, because when you can create your own energy for free, you can travel, you can heat your polytunnels, you can desalinate water. Do you know what I mean? You can heat your homes, you can power your vehicles, your tractors, whatever it is that you need. If you've got free power that's, never ending, that's what we need. And, hydrogen is such a phenomenal resource. It's crazy. Do you know anything about hydrogen?
Well, I mean, it can be used in many different states for many different reasons, especially to combust as well, to create obviously combustible energy. Hence why that's what a lot of the planes use when they're actually up in the sky is hydrogen, rather than natural fuel.
Right. Yeah, there was a rabbit hole that I just briefly skipped over the other day that was talking about the amount of fuel that a jet engine would need.
Yeah, but
it's a crazy amount that they just wouldn't be able to take off with.
No, of course it wouldn't. But also we've got to remember this whole as above, so below, right? So we have energetic ley lines in, say, the UK, for example. They're all over the world. Energy ley lines under, that go through the earth that we're actually supposed to connect to. But it's the same within the seas as well. And, the fish streams that, swim along, traverse these energetic ley lines, but so did the ships in the Viking days. That's how they navigated. And it's like our planes do the same. They use energetic ley lines, which they call flight paths in the sky, that they connect to by using hydrogen combustible energy, which connects to the energetic ley lines in the sky. That's all it is. So that's as above, so below. And they just mock us.
That is interesting.
They just mock us and charge us fuel tax or whatever it is.
Yeah, interesting. I showed one of my mates a schematic for a hydrogen recovery system. That night he went home in his garage, he made one, right? He phoned me up the next day. He was like, Rob, I've knocked one of them things together for you. Come and have a look, right? When I was on my way over there, he said, I've better test it before Rob gets there.
Mm.
So he set light to it and blew the fucking thing up. But yeah, literally managed to get it back working again by the time that I'd got there. And yeah, sure enough, he was separating a combustible material from water. It's just mind blowing. It's like, what the fuck? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But
again,
this
is what this is the beauty of this period we're in right now, is, you know, the nothing surprises you anymore, but there's so much mind-blowing information that's fascinating. Do you know what I mean? And it's exciting, and it's a time for people to get excited about, you know, everything that's out there. It is being co-manifested, and it's being co-manifested when people doing the work on themselves. It's being, you know, if that means connecting to certain plant medicines, then that's your path. Like you already fucking decided it. You know, I worked that out from when I sat in my first Buddha ceremony. Do you know what I mean? You know, and it's been a beautiful ride since. But at the same time, you know, your path might be to just be out on the land and do, you know, being out with nature and being an alchemist. Do you know what I mean? A transmuter of energy. You know, all this kind of stuff beyond the programs we've been subjected to, right? And this is why I truly believe, you know, this is the greatest time to be alive. So get your head into what excites you. You know?
Absolutely, that's the key. That really is the key, you know, because I see people that are worried all of the time, you know, and they're fearful of what's coming. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, listen, you know, the only thing that truly matters is right now, right? If you're worrying about yesterday and thinking about tomorrow for too much, you know, you're wasting now. You know, now shouldn't be at the expense of yesterday or tomorrow, right? And the other thing that I say to people is you have to get your happiness into the future. Do you know what I mean? You have to plan to do the things that you love doing, because otherwise, what's the fucking point? Do you know what I mean? For me personally, like my spending time with my daughter is the most important thing. You know, I absolutely love that. I just treasure it. Then after that, it's doing a bit of fishing. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, like helping people, that's my main focus. But, you know, for a bit of pleasure and a bit of escapism, I go and do a little bit of fishing every week or every couple of weeks, you know, just half an hour. But that gets me back into, you know, this is lovely out in the fresh air next to water. You know, if I don't catch nothing, I don't really care, which, to be honest, I hardly ever catch anything nowadays. It's just about being out there in nature and, you know, enjoying a bit of solitude and thinking with your thoughts and that sort of stuff, you know. But everybody that I say that to, they don't plan for the things they love, you know. So I say to somebody, what do you really love doing? They'll go, oh, I love drawing. And I'm like, right, when you drawing next? And they're like, oh, yeah, I ain't got time to be drawing. Like, come on, what are you here for? Like, this isn't a dreadful, you know, let's get it on, you know, do the things that you love to do. The other thing that I find interesting is that I'll see people with the perfect diet, do you know what I mean? And the perfect life, you know, enough money to not be worried about that. Personal trainers, yoga courses every week, and do you know what I mean? Fancy holidays. But if they're not enjoying their life, they're not healthy. Right? So they'll have the perfect diet and, you know, gluten-free, you know what I mean, vegetarian or vegan or this and that, and they don't drink and no caffeine. And I'm like, look, just have a little bit. If you know, if it's good, like, just have a little bit of what you like does you good, you know. We're here to enjoy life. Something called happy health. You know, so once in a while I'll go and get drunk. Do you know what I mean? Once in a while I'll do mushrooms, or I'll smoke a pipe of weed, or do you know what I mean? Or do something that people would look at me and think, oh, that's probably not a sensible thing to do. But yeah, I like having a drink every now and then, getting drunk.
But that's human, mate. Like, again, and I think like a lot of people got very lost in this concept of what this human experience is, because, you know, people go through like these spiritual shifts, for example, but then they don't, you know, they embody a lot of stuff. They embody a lot of, you know, deeper like understandings in the body, like, you know, go through their own version of their shift in that. But there's a lot of people that are very quick to judge others who just having their universe, you know, and there's billions of universes all happen at every one time, you know what I mean? And so, you know, it's like, I've had people say to me like, oh, are you wearing Bluetooth earphones? And I'm just like, sweetheart, you want to be in my head for half an hour and have the fucking meditations I do and talk to galactics, yeah, and you're gonna fucking bother me about frigging Bluetooth headphones. You see what I mean? It's just like, rather than what I'm actually talking about, there's no need for it. Like, so if you want to have some Bluetooth headphones, have some fucking headphones. If you want to go to the pub and have a few wets, with your mates, do it. Like, and don't you
Just
feel
make
like
the most of it whilst you can. Do you know what I mean?
it's like
You're gonna have a
it's
drink,
like burgers. Yeah, but a burger's not going to make you fat, and a salad's not going to make you thin. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you want to have a drink with your friends in an environment and feel a bit normal, then I'm absolutely for that, right? Like, no one should be judged saying, you're not putting yourself in those low frequency environments, are you, with all that alcohol and that spirit and the all the soul fights in the wine, which makes your soul fight with itself. You know what I mean? It's just like, whatever.
Obviously, if you're doing it every day, it's going to be bad for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, mate.
Once a month with your buddies, like,
Yeah,
happy day, go and enjoy yourself. It's what it's all about.
exactly. It's really important, because that's the whole point of this human experience, is that you feel all the emotions, right? It's not about trying to be some perfect, like, 12th dimensional light being in a body, and be the winner of that competition. You know what I mean? It's just, but like, we all have our own comfort blankets. Like, I was having a big conversation tonight about it. Like, a lot of the guys we work with, including myself, have had a lot of addictions, right? Are very addictive personalities, and like, to just suddenly say to somebody, you need to not have a drink at all, ever, because you're taking a comfort blanket away from them they've had ingrained into them their whole life. Do you know what I mean? To just say, no, I'll decide that you shouldn't have that, or I'm going to judge you and you and your comfort blanket. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. With things like that, how I personally see it is that, like, the purpose isn't clear for that person. Do you know what I mean? Like, they haven't, like, for me, it's really easy. Do you know what I mean? Because I just love helping people. When someone sends me a message and like, Rob, I slept last night and I haven't slept for 4 months. This is amazing. Someone else will phone me up, and that's my true purpose. That's what gets me out of bed. When people get in touch and like, oh, I'm feeling so much better now. So I feel like that would negate any sort of want for an addiction, if that makes sense, or anything that was going to swerve me off of that path. Does that make sense? So when I was smoking weed, when I was a kid, I'd go to work and smoke weed all day long. And, some people would come into work and smoke a bit of weed and just be like, oh, I can't, I've got to sit in the van. And I'm like, no, we got work to do. Like, come on, let's go. Do you know what I mean? And the purpose aspect of me being a good employee overrode the fact that I wanted to be lazy because I was high. Do you know what I mean? So it's when you've got that thing that you're really passionate about, all of that other stuff just pales into insignificance.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, 100%. Well, Rob, mate, it's been amazing to have you on the show, buddy.
It's been a pleasure, mate. I really enjoyed your chat.
I've put the website up on the screen, doalittle.co.uk, and I've put it into show notes. But if people want to get in touch with you, like, in the short term, either about the products you do or to have a one-to-one chat, I know there's a lot of people that have been in the comments as well. Excuse me for not getting through all the comments, but I'm sure there's a lot of people here that love a one-to-one chat with you. So where's the best place to make yourself,
So I say to everybody is email first. So email over, let me know what type of things that you want us to look at. We can either schedule a call, or, if you're close, meet one-to-one if it's, doable. And yeah, we just go through, basically people tell me the symptoms that they've got, and then I say if I've seen them fixed before, and then I say to them how I've seen them be fixed, right? So I don't tell people what to do. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical practitioner, but what I can do is I can tell the truth, right? And tell the things that I've seen work, and that anybody wants to come and get me into trouble for telling the truth, I'm happy with that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not bothered. Whatever you want to throw at me for telling the truth, bring it on. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I will help people. People get in touch and like, Rob, should I do 5 drops of this today? And I'm like, I don't know, how did you feel when you did 4 drops yesterday? I don't know how you felt yesterday. Do you know what I mean? So this is what I meant, you know, with the tools that I use. There's really simplistic things that I teach people during those one-to-ones that they can then take away and use on their own, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we schedule a call, go through things that I've seen work, and yeah, if they want to go ahead and do them things for themselves, that's great.
Cool, man. Awesome.
All right. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on, mate. It's been a lovely chat.
Oh no, absolutely, mate. And you know, I love talking about the, you know, these subjects and just nature and you know, the many versions of, you know, God's plants that we've got like right underneath our nose, that we've just got to get out of this sedentary box to box lifestyle to get out there and see it for yourselves and experience and
Absolutely.
you know, and actually start really feeling in the body, mind, and soul. You know, like what you connect with, what feels right for you. You know, there isn't a one size fits all. You know, it's the same with our plant medicine retreats. You know, I always say like the medicine calls you. You know, we're not calling you with a Facebook post. And
Yeah,
you know, you see a few of your mates, a few Instagram videos they made. Is that, you know, the medicine always calls you. So you just know. So if you feel like you're called to work with cannabis, sit with cannabis, you might even know why. You know, but it's your universe, it's your intuition starting to like it's starting to connect dots for you, and that's only going to speed up like as everything that's happening, like all these huge shifts we're going through at the minute. I'm sure everybody watching, you know, NPCs aren't watching these podcasts, right? These are the people watching these podcasts are supposed to watch these podcasts, right?
right. What about
So,
the 77th, though? Do you reckon they're watching?
no, mate. Like we got, we're protected, mate. Don't worry about it.
Well,
So
I
no,
don't care if I'm not. Like I said, I'm telling the truth. So
yeah, exactly, mate. And that's it. You know, and it's on this podcast, so it wins. Truth wins, God wins, medicine wins. Everyone who's watching this wins because yeah. I'll just put that bold statement out there. Yeah. No, but honestly, Barry, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining the chat, ladies and gents, for those of you, and for all your great comments as well, and support and questions. And I hope we answered a lot of most of what people asked. And like I said, that, you know, my Transmissions with AJ podcast, I really wanted to bring you the best information that I can, that I know of, and through people who have all this amazing wisdom, ancient wisdom, natural wisdom, because that's what people want to hear. You know, like I don't need to look for headliners and big names and all this kind of stuff, because the big names hide behind loads of likes and expensive staff who make their social media look fucking all nice and pretty with shiny lights. All right, don't need any of that. I'm keeping it simple because everything is that simple. So it's about bringing you the best information possible, the truth, you know, in its highest form, you know, even if it hurts sometimes. But, you know, that's what we're all here to do. And, you know, I hope conversations like this really trigger aspects within you that are dormant at the moment, you know, so that activates and, you know, just takes you that little bit closer to what the biggest truth of them all is. What I've always been saying is who you truly are. You know, everything else is just sub level trying to stop you from reaching that. So the question is now, how are you going to win your game? You know, only you have the answer. And for me and Rob, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon once again on Transmissions with AJ.